Hello, I'm Gary Stearman. Welcome to Prophecy Watchers, and we are going today to do a program that's a continuation of one that we started a bit ago. It is about a filmmaker whom I greatly admire. His name is Chris Pinto. He's in studio right now. Chris, welcome to Prophecy Watchers.
Hey Gary, it's great to be with you again.
And this DVD we're talking about, it took a little courage, I think, to make this DVD because it delves into some very dark areas of that have developed in the last century or two in the world and in America. And you bring out facts that I don't think most people are vaguely aware of, that some amazing things have happened in the last century and a half. And let's review, we had a conversation about this before, but let's review a bit of what you have discovered and then take it to the next step.
Well, I would to define the Jesuit order. The film is called American Jesuits, and it covers the history of the Jesuit order, why they are important. It used to be, all the way through the 19th century, that virtually all Christians and Christian ministers knew fully who the Jesuits were. Most people today don't realize that the right to bear arms was actually derived from Jesuits confiscating arms from Protestants and then setting them up for Inquisition. So there's a long history to the Jesuit order. If you had a dictionary back in the 1800s, like a Webster's dictionary, most any Webster's dictionary, or a lot of other dictionaries, and you looked up the word Jesuit or Jesuitical, you would find a reference to the Jesuits as an order known for deception, for intrigue, for sophistry, casuistry, that they develop false doctrines through their schools and colleges. And that's how they mostly work. They work through education. So they have a saying, if you give us a child for 7 years, we will give you the man. That they have a way of indoctrinating and programming people to think the way they want them to, so that when they get older, they end up promoting, certain doctrines and philosophies that they want society to adopt. And probably the most important for a modern audience is their development of the doctrine of social justice back in 1843 through a Jesuit priest named Luigi Tapparelli.
Now that's interesting. 1843, social justice. Now when we use that term today, social justice, we kind of think of it as a new thing. It's a new term. It's just popped up lately. Mm-hmm. But not so, you're saying.
No, not at all. In fact, it's remarkable how many Christian ministers, people like the great historian J.A. Wiley, in his book on the Jesuits, said that because they not only developed social justice, but then afterwards they were working with Karl Marx. The Jesuit general Peter von Becks was working with Karl Marx, and this was published in the newspapers by Otto von Bismarck, the great leader of Germany, who was a Protestant, and he was warning J.A. Wiley. Alexander Hislop, who wrote the book The Two Babylons, had another book called The Red Republic, and he believed the Red Republic, he believed that the color red from communism was the reason why you have the scarlet-colored beast in the book of Revelation. And the woman that rides the beast, as all the reformers believed, is Rome. And so his book, The Red Republic, he's literally saying that the Jesuits and the papacy developed socialism and communism as a weapon against their enemies in the next generation. So all these ministers are warning about social justice, socialism, communism, long before you ever get to 1901. And they weren't just Protestants warning. You had Catholics like, there was a very well-known Catholic named Paul von Hoensbroek, and he came from a very noble Catholic family, a very, very devout Catholic man. He became a Jesuit priest, spent 14 years as a Jesuit, and he left the order because he said he discovered the Jesuits were behind socialism in Germany. And that's the reason he left. He wrote a book called 14 Years a Jesuit. You can find it online. He wrote a series of other works as well. So these things were very, very well known back in the 19th century to both Protestants and Catholics alike. But today, for some reason, through World War I, World War II, information about the order has been kind of phased out of our history books. And most people today in the Christian world know very little about who they are.
And yet, they're active. Even though you may not know who they are or even of their existence, they're very active.
Yeah, they're very active. They run Georgetown University. They've got 28 colleges and universities across the United States, but probably their headquarters is Georgetown University. And they're very involved in politics. They have a saying that on the 8th day, God created politics. That's one of their mottos. So they're not a non-political, or they openly admit they're very, very involved in politics. And anybody who studies Georgetown University could see that. One of their disciples is Bill Clinton. We talk about that in the film. Bill Clinton's Jesuit mentor at Georgetown University is was a Jesuit priest named Otto Hentz, who's been a professor there for decades. But most people don't know who Otto Hentz is, even though he's a public figure. He's not hiding, he's there at Georgetown, but most people have no idea that he's this very influential person in the life of Bill Clinton.
Well, what is this world all about? Well, it's about the distribution of power. The distribution, we could say, and management of power. And there's a constant battle to see who gets to do that. Mm-hmm. And there has been as long and as far back as you want to look, right?
Right, absolutely. And one of the instruments of their power is what they've done now with, and I think probably, as Christians, there's the political side, but the spiritual side and the theological side is the Jesuits are behind ecumenism. They are the ones responsible for Vatican Council II, where they basically declared that all religions are one and the same, or all religions are different paths to finding God, something that Pope Francis, who's a Jesuit, said here recently. And of course we know that according to the Bible, that's heresy. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes unto the Father but by me. And Jesus says, I am the door. By me men may enter in and be saved. But if any man tries to climb in through some other way, the same as a thief and a robber. So the idea that there's many paths to God, or that religions like Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism are somehow equal to Christianity, we believe that's a false doctrine, but that's exactly what the Jesuits promoted through Vatican Council II. And even many Catholics believe that's a complete betrayal of historic Christianity and historic Catholicism, because nobody in 2,000 years, none of the churches anywhere, ever believed that particular philosophy.
So in your work, this is entitled American Jesuits, you're really talking about the distribution of power, the management of power. The idea might appear to be religious, quote unquote, but in fact what we're talking about is the ages-long management to see who gets to tell somebody else what to do, right?
Well, I think there's no question about that. That's one of the interesting things about the order, is that the leader of the Jesuits is called the general, the Jesuit general, or the superior general. But his nickname is the Black Pope, and there's even a book called The Black Pope, written by a nun named M.F. Cusack back in the late 19th, early 20th century. And the book basically explains that in the Catholic world, it's generally accepted that the Black Pope, the Jesuit general, rules over the White Pope, that he tells the Pope what to say, what to do, what his doctrinal views and theology and so on are going to be. And so that's how the power structure in Rome operates.
We're talking to filmmaker Chris Pinto, and Chris has outdone himself this time. A lengthy but absolutely riveting film entitled American Jesuits. Let's pause for a minute here. I'd like to tell you about the Prophecy Watcher, our monthly magazine here at Prophecy Watchers. And I'd like to pause for a moment, tell you how you can get your own subscription to our monthly magazine.
10 years ago, we began an exciting journey, a mission dedicated to spreading the good news of the soon return of Jesus. Our passion for teaching Bible prophecy is what drives us to warn the world of events that are soon to come. In the last 2 years, tens of thousands of prophecy watchers from all over the world have subscribed to our monthly magazine, The Prophecy Watcher. Our first Too Good to Be True offer came with 8 bonus DVDs. Our second offer came with 10 bonus DVDs. But our 10-year anniversary offer is even better. 12 DVDs on Bible prophecy can be yours when you subscribe to our 48-page full-color magazine for just 1 year, print or digital format, all for a gift of $50, with shipping included in the USA. Recent events have turned the world upside down. The COVID-19 pandemic was followed by Russia's war in Ukraine, all overshadowed by the horrific October 7th tragedy in Israel. The prophets of the Bible predicted a series of end-time wars, and we're seeing the final pieces of the puzzle fall into place. Russia, China, Iran, Syria, Turkey. The enemies of Israel are on the doorstep, just as the Bible predicted some 2,500 years ago. The Prophecy Watcher magazine includes the writings of dozens of prophecy experts like Gary Stearman, Mondo Gonzalez, L.A. Marzulli, Bill Salas, Josh Peck, and many others, writing on fascinating subjects like the rapture, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Red Heifer, the World Economic Forum, the Global Reset, digital currency, the Mark of the Beast, the Nephilim, and the Antichrist's beast system of global control, things you will likely never hear about in church. 12 bonus DVDs will introduce you to Ezekiel's Gog and Magog war and the road to Armageddon. We'll examine the supernatural side of the Bible as we investigate controversial issues like the Nephilim, government UFO cover-ups, and the Shroud of Turin. We'll address the Luciferian Rebellion, a mutiny that changed heaven and earth forever. Speaking of heaven, you'll enjoy Mondo's glimpse into God's creation as he explores the stunning beauty of the stars and galaxies, seen through the lens of our Psalm 19 observatory cameras. 12 issues of the magazine, plus 12 bonus DVDs, a $180 value, now available for your gift of $50 to support our worldwide television outreach. Care to become a fellow Prophecy Watcher? Just visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv. Partner with us today and help us take the message of the soon return of Jesus to the whole world.
Well, we're back, and we have Chris Pinto with us for a few more minutes, but I don't think there are enough minutes to talk about the subject because this is really a huge subject. American Jesuits. It's a subject about the balance of power, and I think even if you're not a historian, even if you're, just a guy with a regular job and you come home, watch television, maybe you read magazines, and you're always interested in why did so-and-so do this? Senator so-and-so said such and such, and this caused this to happen over here, but I wonder what was really behind that. And that's sort of what your film is about. What is going on really behind the scenes?
Well, there was a very famous meeting of Jesuit leaders in a place called Chieri, Italy, back in 1825. And one of the things that they determined was, they said, let our work be in secret, let us shun too much light. So they don't really want to be in open warfare. The last time they were in open warfare against the Protestant world was with the 30 Years' War. And it's one of the things we talk about. Very, very important, the 30 Years' War that ended in 1648 with the Peace of Westphalia, which I think is so important for what's happening today. Because the Peace of Westphalia, well, the war was fought because the Jesuits and their armies tried to stamp out Protestantism from Western Europe by force.
Wow.
And killed, there were a total of about 8 million people that died in the 30 Years' War. It's interesting, at the end of World War II, Winston Churchill and Charles de Gaulle said, we've just come to the end of our second 30 Years' War. And I believe, and we show in the film, that they were really alluding to the fact that the Vatican and the Jesuits were behind the whole Nazi movement and Mussolini and other leaders that were involved in the Axis powers. But the conclusion of the 30 Years' War, part of what Sam Adams called political Protestantism, is the national sovereignty of individual nations. And that's what the Peace of Westphalia determined. That what the Jesuits wanted, they wanted all the countries to be under the authority of the Pope. The Pope would be the vicar of Christ and he would tell everybody what to do. Well, the individual countries didn't want that. They wanted their own sovereignty. So the Peace of Westphalia is signed and it declares all the individual countries will be sovereign. Now you fast forward, and when Tony Blair, who converted to Catholicism, was in power, it was said by the newspapers that he was the leader that ushered in the post-Westphalian generation, the post-Westphalian era. And so,
in other words, a shift of power, a major shift of power.
To now no longer national sovereignty, now open borders. You see, and this immigration warfare.
That rings a bell. You say
Yeah.
open borders. That's the discussion in America right now.
Exactly.
And you're saying, and by the way, you document this in your film, that that's no accident.
No, there's actually a lot of documentation for it. And one of the documents we show is a document called Strangers No Longer Together on a Journey of Hope, where the Catholic bishops of America and the Catholic bishops in Mexico had an agreement that they would facilitate the mass immigration of all these immigrants through Mexico into the United States. And I believe, of course, that's what's happening. I don't think it's an accident that Joe Biden and Pelosi and all the others who have connections to the Jesuits at Georgetown and across the country and to the Vatican, I don't think it's an accident that they've opened our borders and now they're engaging in what Dr. Ronald Cook, who we interview, who's a historic Protestant minister, but he says what they're doing is called irredentism. That's the Italian word, irredentism, which means immigration warfare.
Immigration warfare. Now that term rings a bell, even though I've never heard it before, because it sort of opens up a little viewing port, and you say, okay, making war through immigration. And you know, I am not by nature someone who likes to analyze power and politics. I'm very much interested in the Bible, in spiritual things, in the church. But you're making me stop and think about the distribution of power, the history of that distribution, how it happens. And it's really not accidental at all. There's a lot of planning at very high levels that makes things happen. And you document that in your film rather well.
Well, part of what we show is all of the, you know, the pastors, the teachers, the ministers who were writing books, one book after another, warning about what Rome was doing, especially with this development of these Marxist ideas, and that they were the secret power behind Marxism and socialism and so on. But I keep coming back to Alexander Hislop and his view, because globalism is really international communism. And you look at what the World Economic Forum wants to do, they're saying, well, the time will come when you'll own nothing, you'll pay rent, right? And supposedly everybody's going to be perfectly happy. Well, how are we going to own nothing? Only if these globalists find a way to steal all the private property. And that comes back to the inner doctrine of social justice. When Taparelli developed social justice, he openly admitted that he was trying to revive the earlier teachings of Thomas Aquinas, which is called Thomism in the Catholic Church. Well, Thomas Aquinas developed the doctrine of justifiable theft. And this is very well documented. We show you in the film. But justifiable theft, that it's okay to steal from your neighbor as long as you steal for a good reason.
Ah, good reason.
And so that's what he didn't just say it once or twice. He had a whole series of teachings on why it's okay to steal from your neighbor. And of course he was a Dominican. The Dominicans ran the Inquisition. And people have forgotten that the Inquisition often confiscated land and wealth. That was like one of the main things that they did, was confiscation of land and wealth. So that is the inner doctrine of social justice by Taparelli.
Wow. You're listening to Chris Pinto. We are only scratching the surface of what his new film really goes deeply into, and he brings together several ideas that I'm sure you have not thought of as being, unless you are a college level historian, you haven't thought about how power is interlocked in not only in our present world, but in the centuries past, and how the centuries past come very logically up to what we're seeing today. And you've done a great job bringing that down to my level. I'm not a historian, but you have brought things down to the level that really just opened my eyes in a lot of ways. So thank you very much.
Well, praise the Lord. Thank you for saying so, Gary. Means a
And
lot.
Christians, I think, need to be informed. Our prayer life, by the Lord's desire, by the prophets, the apostles, what do they all tell us? Pray. Pray. You have this problem? Pray about it. Bring it before the Lord. And you know, after watching this, really, I think I'm more stimulated to pray about the world situation. I think I'm more educated about what to pray for, frankly, than I was before. So I really appreciate what you've done.
Well, the scripture tells us, you know, sir, we have many warnings in the Bible about how in the last days perilous times will come.
Yes.
That evildoers and seducers will wax worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived.
Right.
One historic witness after another has warned about the Vatican and the Jesuits in particular, not necessarily every Catholic order, but the Jesuits in particular, because their aim is to overthrow all the work of Protestantism, widespread publishing of the Bible, the development of these fundamental freedoms of speech, of conscience, of religion, etc. And their aim is to find clever, manipulative ways to destroy all of that. And you think about what happens in a communist country, they effectively destroy all the fundamental liberties that God has granted us over the past few hundred years.
Yes. The film is American Jesuits, and we're going to pause. You see how you can get your own copy of this film. Believe me, it's worth watching.
By exposing the dark side of a secret Jesuit organization, today's guest, Chris Pinto, is bound to create some controversy and even make some enemies along the way. But as Christians, should we be silent and allow evil and wickedness to prosper? If you've never seen one of Chris's films before, you're missing out on one of the world's best researchers. His new DVD, American Jesuits, is available from Prophecy Watchers for your gift of $30 or more, with shipping included in the USA. Call the toll-free number on your screen or visit the Prophecy Watchers bookstore at prophecywatchers.com. For our international friends, please note that additional shipping fees do apply and all prices listed are in US dollars. As always, we put together a special package with 3 of Chris's most intriguing films, hours of deep research that blows the cover off of some very dark cover-ups and conspiracies. The Kinsey Syndrome documents how one man's sexual agenda destroyed the morality of America. The Untold History of the Bible takes us back to the days when the Catholic Church chained the Bible to the pulpit, refusing to allow it to be translated into English for the common man. Lastly, the True Christian History of America will examine the faith of the Pilgrims and how America was used by God to share the gospel with much of the world. All 3 films are available for your gift of $85 with a special bonus, a copy of Chris's new film, American Jesuits, a masterpiece that is sure to bring you up to speed on Satan's plan for the long-anticipated one world religion. These 4 DVDs represent a $150 value, a savings of $65, plus free shipping. Prophecy Watchers exists to share the gospel with the whole world. Every week, we try to educate people on the things the Bible says about the world's future, and more importantly, your future. Challenging times lie just ahead, and we want you to be prepared for the events that will soon change our world forever. Thanks for watching today. Remember, Jesus is coming soon. Make sure you accept his free gift of eternal life.
Well, we're back with filmmaker, author Chris Pinto. I say author because the things that you do may not end up on paper and typeset, but they are works nevertheless. They are the same sort of information that you get from some of those really thick books that you might find boring. You won't find his film boring, believe me. I took this film home and sat down and watched it without knowing what to expect. I couldn't look away. That's the truth. That's all I can say.
Well, I think what many people find remarkable when they start studying the Jesuit order is that there have been so many warnings from great historic figures like John Adams, writing to Thomas Jefferson, warning about how the Jesuits had been, and some people are tempted to think, Gary, that exposing these things is somehow or other anti-Catholic, or you're attacking Catholic people, this kind of thing. The Jesuits were kicked out of the countries of Europe 39 times from 1540 to 1773. Most of those countries were Catholic countries. It was their own Catholic people and leaders who were driving them out of their countries. Finally, you had Catholic leaders all over the world who appealed to the Pope, Pope Clement, to abolish the order, as he did in the year 1773. Then they poisoned him a year later, and he died. Of course, they deny that they poisoned him, but the conspiracy theorists, if you will, in history, all claimed that he was poisoned and that the Jesuits were behind it. John Adams even said at one point that nearly all the monarchs of Europe feared Jesuitical assassination, because it was very commonly known that they were behind assassinations and atrocities throughout history. So that's why people feared them. And then you had many voices in the 19th century, like the Marquis de Lafayette, who served with George Washington during the American Revolution. And he said at one point, once the Jesuits were revived in 1815, he said, if these states, the United States of America, should ever lose their liberty, it will be at the hand of the Roman Catholic Jesuit priests.
Wow.
For they are the most crafty enemies of civil and religious liberty.
Well, I think we're going to have to stop there. We are out of time. The clock has caught up with us, but Chris, keep up the good work. You are an in-depth researcher with a message that we need to see.
Well, thank you, Gary. It's been great to be here.
Bless your work.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Gary Stearman. This is Prophecy Watchers, and believe me, there's a lot in prophecy that's opening up today. We'll see you again soon.
The media ministry of Prophecy Watchers exists only through the faithful prayer and financial support of friends like you.